Well, sometimes things just don't go the way you plan them. So I was pretty much over as far as I could go on that side. Manny had just went through here and bam, the ground gave out underneath me. So the plan is I am going to hook up to his winch. I'm going to try to pull my front end out, being in four-wheel drive, hoping that nothing broke underneath. And then to get the rear wheels, I'm going to have to bridge it somehow. Yeah, I don't know if I should go forward or backwards. So as you can see here, the back wheel is in a bad position, and I'll explain a little bit later how it ended up in that position. But it doesn't look like going back is going to be an option. The situation is still new to us, so we're just talking through different ideas of how to get the Jeep out of the culvert and then how to bridge it so that I can get completely over it. And it's times like these that you really appreciate traveling with another buddy and you're not out there alone like I did 6 months last year on my trip. And then we'll fill it in with dirt, and then I'll drive the rest of the way out. So back in there, that hole is huge, and I'm gonna be lucky to get out of this easily. The only way is to go forward. I don't know how I can go back. I don't like where my other wheel's sitting actually, but that's gonna be a lot of dirt to fill in to try to get the back out of this. So since I'll get a lot of questions about this particular situation, I do want to explain a few things during this video. I was driving at about 15 to 20 miles per hour when the culvert gave way and I came to a dead stop. My rear wheel was not that close when I was driving to the edge. It was only that close because I believe I bounced up and the rear moved over to the edge that close. So at this point, I'm trying to dig out what I can and fill in a little bit of dirt, because in that culvert, the hole actually goes back to the other side of the Jeep, and I've got about 3 feet of ground underneath my right wheels. So I'm going to take some go treads, since that's the only thing that'll fit, and put them in front of the right wheel, or the driver's side wheel, to get a little bit of traction as he's pulling me out. My bumper is pinned to the ground and I can't get a full track in there, so half a go tread was all I could use. I didn't want to try to drive out on purpose because I didn't want to disrupt too much ground. I didn't want to make the hole deeper, and I didn't want to vibrate the ground so that it would make the rest of the culvert collapse. So Manny had hooked up a pulley system on the winch to put less strain on his Jeep and his winch, and at this point we are just making sure that we're aligned as to how this is going to work. So I'm going to slowly drive it out while he's pulling on the winch and let his winch do most of the work. So the idea here again is to not disrupt the ground as much as possible, just get the left wheel out and then figure out the next step from there. So you can see here that it's going to pretty much be effortless for the Jeep to come out of the hole. My biggest concern is what you see here and the angle at which the front axle was when it hit that culvert. So I'm still very concerned about the issues that I'm going to find underneath the Jeep. We were talking via walkie-talkie, so I could tell him how far to pull and when to stop. And then here is just a windshield view. So now that the Jeep is completely upright and on solid ground, so to speak, we can now look at how we're going to deal with the next part of the situation. That sound that you just heard, that popping, was nothing more than the bump stop that's within the front spring catching on the spring and then letting go, and it just leveled itself out. So at this point, we now need to decide how we're going to get the other wheel over, and you'll see what exactly was underneath the Jeep and how far that hole went back to the other side. It was at this moment that we realized that we're probably going to have to do a lot more digging than we originally anticipated. So now we're just talking about the next steps and what we think is the best way to start bridging this gap and getting out of the situation altogether so that we can get a move on. I was just lightly putting on the gas as he pulled me out. That pulley system worked really awesome. It was almost effortless. Now, as you can see, that hole goes back pretty far. I think my right wheel's gonna be okay. We're just gonna pack this with ground. I'm gonna put some tracks across it, and then hopefully that'll get us through this area. I was leaking a whole bunch of, I still am, fluid, but I think that was coming out of my reservoir. So hopefully that's gonna stop. If not, I've got extra, but hopefully I didn't do any damage. So I still have the engine running at this point because I was kind of afraid to turn it off. I was not sure if it was going to turn back on. So eventually I'll look underneath the hood and see if there's any damage there, as well as underneath the vehicle. So for anybody that's going to leave the comment, you should have just hit it with your purse. Off camera, Manny and I both hit it multiple times with our purses and absolutely nothing happened. That solution is absolutely overrated and does not work. And also, for those that want to say that I should just send it, I kind of explained that as to why we did not just try to drive out without first looking at other solutions, but we had the winch available. We didn't want to make the matter worse. This is my home away from home, and I didn't want to put the Jeep in a worse situation or break it worse than it might already be. I still have a long way to go to hit pavement, and the less damage that can be done to this thing, the better. And yes, I am taking more video. After this happened and I was safe, and we figured that the Jeep probably wasn't going anywhere if we didn't do a whole lot of movement of the ground, we went ahead and started videoing everything so that at least I could capture this part of the adventure as well as the good stuff. Here I am seeing that the fluid actually did just come out of the reservoir, and that was what all the leaking was. I'm not seeing any other damage to the radiator. From what I can see, it hasn't been pushed out of place. Everything else looks to be where it should be, and the engine doesn't sound any different than it did before I ran into the culvert. Underneath, to my amazement, nothing seems to be broken, nothing seems to be out of place, but I am still unsure as to how it's going to drive. But at this point, since it did pull out without making any major noises or banging, I was fairly confident that at the very least Manny would be able to put a tow rope onto it and pull me to pavement if needed. So now was the long process of filling in the culvert with dirt. It was pretty quick when we realized that the effort was going to be futile. Everything that we moved ended up falling into the hole underneath the Jeep, so it was pretty evident quickly that we would have to come up with another plan. Luckily, Manny is an engineer and was looking around our surroundings to try to come up with a solution. It ended up working out rather well, but for now we'll continue to stand out in the blazing sun and move a lot of dirt. So then Manny found this board, and I had a Sawzall with me, so he had an idea to use it. So I took the Sawzall out, we cut it in half, and then he was able to come up with a solution that saved us a lot of earth moving. So
then we'll put this board on top.
Yeah, so we took that board that was kind of hanging there. It wasn't even really doing anything anyway. But to cut it in half, Manny had the idea of putting the board there so that the dirt doesn't keep going in the hole. We'll pack the dirt up against that. We're going to lay that board on top as well as Max tracks or my tracks. And that way we can hopefully get across this thing. All right, so this is what we got. Kind of getting scarce on dirt here around here, and pretty sure that with the Max tracks on top of the Go treads, it'll give it enough give. We have a board underneath some of that dirt, and then we've got a board holding back some of the dirt. I'm just going to gun it and hope for the best in four-wheel drive. Manny's an engineer. He says it's going to work. We will soon find out. This is the moment of truth. He's going to unhook the winch just in case this goes south. And yeah, it should be interesting. So I don't think I did any damage under here. I can't really tell. It's going to be hard to tell until I'm driving. But there was a lot of radiator fluid that came out through the reservoir since it was at a bad angle. That stopped coming out, and the engine seems to be running okay. It was mostly sitting on the axle and a bit on the tie rod bar. So if there is any damage, it's on those two areas. It did engage in four-wheel drive when I needed it to, so let's see what happens.
Nice.
So yeah, that's what we've dug out, and I guess we're going to leave that board in there because it did work. I don't like that it's sticking up out of the ground, but to get that out, if we took that out, there's no way somebody's going to be able to drive over this.
No, that's going to help. Even
so
without the board, it's going to help people.
Yeah. All right, so we're going to clean up. The Jeep is safe and sound for now. That was a close one. So I got to reattach everything to the roof and make sure my engine's okay still, and that I've got enough fluid, and then we'll get going.
Major inspection of your front end when we have
yeah,
go back on the road.
Absolutely. A couple of miles down the road, we did run into a couple of locals and told them about the culvert that is now impassable, and that we were worried about the rancher who could no longer get his truck out probably. They assured us that they had radios and that they could communicate to people in the area so that the culvert could be fixed so that the next time anybody needed it, they could actually use it. So this made us feel a little bit better on our way out. It was fun. It was actually interesting. It's gonna be something we're gonna talk about for a long time. What a day. All right, so we have been on the road for almost 3 hours, actually about 2.5 hours, since we wrapped everything up and headed back out to paved road, and I am beat. The Jeep is acting fine. I did have an overheating issue, so I added some coolant, and now even at 7,000 feet going up steep inclines, it is running as it should since I've added the fluid. I have not had any overheating issues since then. At least the Jeep is out. Other than an alignment, I think I'm going to be okay. But yeah, so it is 5:06. We left about 2:30. I think we've still got a long way to go before we see anything. The Jeep is still running great. I am really surprised. I really thought I would have more of an issue. A lot of the weight was put on the front axle as well as my front tie rod, and thank goodness I upgraded to the Grand Cherokee V8 tie rod, which is a solid bar, because the way it was sitting on that dirt, I'm pretty sure that your OEM Cherokee bar would have bet being a hollow tube. But I've got no wobble whatsoever, other than my steering being a little bit out of alignment. It doesn't wobble, it doesn't make any funny sounds, it's not making any funny movements. So fingers crossed that that continues and I don't develop an issue in the future. But I really thought that maybe a bushing would be torn up or something would be out of whack. I didn't see any broken welds on any of the like shock mounts or track bar area, or even on my upper or lower control arms. So must have hit it at just the right angle, and I was really worried about my drive shaft. The way I hit and putting all that force on the front axle, I was really wondering if it wouldn't shove the drive shaft back and mess up the U-joints. But it doesn't seem to have at this point. I'll do a better inspection, but I've got no leaks in the transfer case or up front in the axle that I can see, but I'll do a more thorough look after we park tonight. So yeah, that's it. I am, like I said, dead tired, and I can't wait till we stop somewhere and I can just chill out. So talk to you later.